This is the silent killer of profit in your business, and the number that we're going to be looking at today is gross profit. So we're going to cover what is gross profit, the mistakes that I see people making, the benchmarks around it, and why it's important from an investment decision-making point of view. So first up, what is gross profit? So gross profit is, if you look at your P&L, you're going to have revenue or sales at the top. Your next line is going to be cost of sales, and those are all of the costs that go into making and delivering a project to a customer. And what is left over after those two numbers, so sales minus cost of sales, is gross profit, okay? And gross profit can be expressed as an absolute number, or more typically, it's expressed as a percentage, which is called gross margin. And that gross margin would be gross profit, the absolute number, divided by your revenue number. So let's just say, for argument's sake, we sell something for £100, it cost us £50 to make and deliver, we have £50 gross profit left over, £50 divided by the £100 sales price is a 50% gross margin. So here are the mistakes that I see people make all the time. They are not counting properly the costs that should be going into cost of sales, and therefore the gross profit number is completely skewed. And if you don't know this and you can't monitor it properly, you will not be making informed financial decisions for your business. So what should be included in cost of sales? All of the materials that go into making a kitchen, okay? So your cabinetry, your raw materials if you're a manufacturer, cabinetry if you're buying stuff from Germany or from overseas or from a supplier, okay? Appliances, stone worktop costs, installation, because that is a direct cost associated with installing a job. The labour question is where it gets a bit tricky. If you're a manufacturer, any staff that you have in the workshop will count as direct labour, i.e. cost of sales. If you have project managers, they will be included in cost of sales. Why is that? Because direct labour, cost of sales should be every cost that is directly attributable to a project being delivered, and if that project was not being delivered, that cost would not be incurred, or you wouldn't actually have to pay those people. So for example, if you don't sell a kitchen, you cannot make a kitchen, for example. So the staff in the workshop, if you didn't sell a kitchen, they wouldn't have a job. So that is a direct cost. Project managers, if you weren't selling kitchens, they would have nothing to manage. So it is a direct cost. Showroom designers, sales designers, on the other hand, they are designing on a salary despite the fact that they are not necessarily selling things. So that cost is lower down, it's under the line, it's an operating expense, it's not a cost of sale, okay? Another mistake that I see people make is that they put commissions for designers or commissions for interior designers, referral fees into an operating expense, but it's not. It is a cost of sale because, again, you are only paying that once a job is confirmed and once a sale is agreed and there is a project to be delivered. A truck that takes the furniture from your workshop, delivers it to client site, that's a cost of sale. Again, because you only do that when you're actually delivering a project. So that's everything that goes into cost of sales, and that will give you a more accurate gross profit number. So let's look at the benchmarks. So typically, a good gross profit margin is going to be somewhere between 35 and 45%. Below 35%, you need to look at that urgently. Above 45%, stellar, unbelievable. You want to check that you are including the right things in there. So what does this number tell you, your gross margins and this benchmark figure between 35 and 45%? What it tells you is how much of a premium you are selling your product for, how efficient your production process is, whether you are buying things at a good price or you're getting overcharged. So you need to look at this as like the North Star metric in your business, and you want to try and improve that as much as you can. You could improve it by increasing prices. You could improve it by lowering costs. And those two levers you can play around with to get your ultimate, trying to get it to 45%. But the main reason that I think that gross margins are really key to keep an eye on is the impact that it has on decision making in a business. So why is that? If I sell a kitchen for £10,000, and my gross margin is 50%, for argument's sake, that means that every additional kitchen that I sell, I generate £5,000 basically in pure profit. Why is that? Because a lot of expenses in a kitchen business are fixed. The overhead is fixed. Your rent, your rates, a lot of your salaries, you are paying them come what may. So every additional sale that you make, you are taking that gross margin, that gross profit of £5,000 in this example, and that is going straight to the bottom line or to your net profit, which is eventually the money that you pay yourself as a business owner. So when we analyze decisions, investment decisions for the business, we look at it through the frame of gross margins. So what do I mean? If I am looking at hiring another designer, and that designer wants to charge £30,000 a year as a salary, let's just say, I know that my average order value on a kitchen is £10,000. My gross margin is 50%, which means that every additional kitchen that I sell, I make another £5,000. Okay? If a designer is telling me that they are going to charge £30,000 a year as their salary, that means that I would have to sell 6 more kitchens in a year. So 6 times the £5,000 gross profit is £30,000. I would have to sell 6 more kitchens in a year, or 1 every 2 months, to be able to justify this additional person's contribution to the team. And then I think, will having an extra designer on the team enable me to sell 1 more kitchen every 2 months? And you can use that for any investment decision in the business. That could be on marketing spend, that could be on investing in new machinery, on any member of staff. It really gives you a framework through which to look through to analyze investment decisions. So just some food for thought, and one thing that I would recommend is analysing on a job-by-job basis where your gross margins lie. Now, obviously, analysing the labour component of that is going to be very difficult. We look at purchases as a percentage of revenue for the job, which basically tells you the gross profit less labour, but it can give you a really, really good idea of whether you're paying too much for certain things and whether you should or shouldn't be discounting on certain jobs. Hopefully now you're armed with a way to analyse investment decisions and look in your business. Please pay attention to your gross margins. It will make a huge difference to you.